I was 9 years old the day my entire world disappeared at a rundown gas station off Highway 55. It was a sticky summer afternoon in 2004, the kind where the air feels thick enough to chew. My parents had been arguing the whole drive from our apartment in Ohio toward what they kept calling a fresh start somewhere down south. I sat in the back seat of our old blue Civic, clutching my worn-out Spider-Man backpack, trying to stay invisible. Every few minutes I'd catch my mom's eyes in the rearview mirror, red and tired. Dad's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. We pulled into the gas station just after sunset. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects. Mom told me to go inside and use the bathroom while Dad filled the tank. I remember the smell of old hot dogs and motor oil as I pushed open the heavy glass door. When I came back out, wiping my wet hands on my jeans, the parking spot where our car had been was empty. Just a dark oil stain on the concrete where the Civic had sat moments before. I stood there for what felt like forever, staring at that empty space. My heart started hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I thought maybe they'd moved to a different pump. I walked around the entire station twice, my small sneakers slapping against the pavement. Nothing. The car was gone. They were gone. A trucker finally noticed me standing by the ice machine, tears streaming down my face. He asked if I was lost. I could barely speak. I told him my parents' names. He took me inside, and the cashier called the police. I waited on a plastic chair that smelled like cigarettes, swinging my legs because they didn't reach the floor. Convinced any second our blue Civic would pull back in and Mom would rush out apologizing, saying they just hadn't seen me. They never came back. The police searched for days. My parents' names turned up in the system. Some unpaid tickets, some arguments with landlords, but no one seemed to know where they'd gone, or if they did, they weren't saying. I became a number in the foster care system. Case number 47291. The first few homes were rough. People who took kids in for the checks and not much else. I learned quickly how to be quiet, how to make myself small. At night, I'd lie in whatever bed I was given and replay that gas station moment in my head, trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. Had I taken too long in the bathroom? Was I too loud in the car? Did they finally get tired of me? Those questions ate me alive for years. By the time I turned 14, I'd lived in 9 different houses across 3 counties. I was angry, withdrawn, and carrying a silence so heavy it felt like it had weight. That's when I met Mrs. Elena Ramirez, my last foster mother. She was a retired teacher with a soft voice and sharp eyes. She didn't try to fix me. She just handed me an old tape recorder one afternoon and said, "Some kids are better at talking to machines than people. Try it." I started recording everything. Stories I made up. Thoughts I couldn't say out loud. The sound of rain on the window. My own voice reading books from the library. There was something healing about hearing myself speak when no one else was listening. For the first time, I wasn't disappearing. I was creating. When I aged out at 18, I had nothing but a GED, that old tape recorder, and a voice that had somehow deepened into something warm and steady. I worked night shifts at a call center, then moved up to a local radio station as an intern. I'd stay late and practice in the empty studio, reading news, telling stories, experimenting with my delivery. The station manager heard me one night and gave me a shot hosting a late-night show. Nothing big, just 3 hours of random talk and caller stories. But people started listening. They said my voice felt like someone sitting across from them in the dark, making sense of the world. Over the next 10 years, that little show grew. I moved to a bigger city, got a real podcast deal, then a national syndication. The Midnight Hour became one of those shows people kept playing in their cars, in their headphones while working late, or when they couldn't sleep. My voice calm, thoughtful, a little gravelly around the edges became recognizable. Listeners would write in, saying it felt like home. I never told them how much that meant. How I'd spent years looking for home myself. I was 29 when everything cracked open again. It was a Tuesday night. I was in the middle of a segment where listeners called in with their biggest regrets. A woman from Nebraska was talking about leaving her dog at a shelter years ago. I was gently guiding the conversation when my producer flashed me a signal through the glass. Something about a big spike in calls. I wrapped up the segment and took another caller. The voice on the line was shaky. An older woman. I think I know you, she said. I laughed softly, the way I always did when fans got emotional. Well, I hope it's in a good way. There was a long pause, then she whispered, Alex, is that you? My real name? Not the radio name. My real one. The studio felt like it dropped 10 degrees. I froze. The producer was waving at me to keep going, but my throat had closed up. She kept talking, voice breaking. We left you at that gas station. Your father and I. I've played the show for months because something about your voice, it wouldn't leave me alone. Tonight I knew. It's you. It's really you. The words hit me like ice water. 20 years of questions, rage, and emptiness rushed up all at once. I could barely speak. I told the audience we'd be right back after a break, but my hands were shaking so badly I could hardly hit the button. After the show, I sat in the dark studio for almost an hour, staring at the wall. My phone started blowing up with messages from the producer. Apparently, the woman had left her number. Her name was Diane Thompson. My mother. I didn't sleep that night. I paced my apartment until sunrise, playing every possible scenario in my head. Part of me wanted to scream at her. Another part, the 9-year-old, still standing by that gas pump, wanted to beg her to tell me why. 3 days later, I agreed to meet them. They lived in a small trailer park outside Louisville now. Nothing like the life I'd imagined they might have built without me. When I pulled up, a thin woman with gray streaked hair stepped out first. She looked at me like I was a ghost. My father followed, older, stooped, eyes hollow. They both stared at me like they couldn't believe I was real. We sat at a rickety picnic table behind their trailer. For a long time, no one spoke. Then my mother reached out and touched my hand, her fingers trembling. I was sick, she said quietly. Really sick, she said quietly. Really sick. Mentally. Knew father was losing his job. We were drowning in debt. We had this crazy idea that if we left you somewhere safe, someone would take you in and give you a better life than we could. We thought we were doing the right thing. We drove 2 hours before we turned around. But by then the police were already there. We panicked. We ran. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. We told ourselves you'd be better off. Every year on your birthday we'd drive past that gas station. We never stopped. We couldn't. I listened to them talk, feeling something strange inside my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. The kind that comes when you realize your parents were just broken people, not villains. They'd carried their own version of that gas station moment for 20 years too. I told them about the homes, the loneliness, the nights I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. I told them about the tape recorder, about finding my voice when everything else had been taken. My mother cried so hard she couldn't speak. My father just kept saying, I'm sorry, like a broken record. I didn't hug them when I left. Not yet. Some wounds don't close in one afternoon. But I did something I never thought I'd do. I invited them to come to the studio sometime, to sit in the back while I did a show, to hear the voice they'd left behind become something that helped millions of people feel less alone. The first time they came, my mother sat in the corner with tears running down her face the entire hour. When I finished, she whispered, We left a boy at that gas station. But somehow, you found yourself anyway. I still don't know if I'll ever have the kind of relationship with them that other people have with their parents. Some things you can't fully repair. But I do know this, that 9-year-old boy who stood crying by the pumps isn't lost anymore. He grew up. He found his voice. And sometimes, in the strangest twist of fate, that same voice reached back through 20 years of silence and brought his parents home. If you're listening to this right now, and carrying your own abandonment story, I want you to hear me. The place where they left you doesn't have to be the place where your story ends. Sometimes the road forward is longer and harder than anyone should have to walk. But you can still walk it. You can still build something beautiful out of the pieces they left behind, and maybe one day, your voice will be the thing that finds its way back to the people who once walked away. Or maybe it will simply find its way to you, the person you were always meant to become. This is Alex Thompson. Thanks for sitting with me in the midnight hour. I'll see you next time.